Hi, I'm Dr. Beth Giltvet.
And I'm Dr. Nick Vincelli of Horizon Eye Care.
We want you to see what you love and love how you see. We're proud sponsors of the Owatonna Today Show.
This is Nancy Ness, Executive Director of the Steele County Food Shelf. I want to thank you for considering rounding up your purchases at our local Airways Hardware store during the month of December. 100% of your donations will go to benefit those in need during this special time of year. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection. I'm your host, Francie Hall, and we are privileged to be sitting here with Boyd Huppert from KARE 11, and you may know him from the Land of 10,000 Stories, and most of them will make you cry.
That's not my goal when we start out, make people weep. But,
is that how you won?
But I don't take that as an insult either.
Sometimes it's tears of joy, and sometimes it's just very poignant.
Well, I hope we're doing stories that make you feel something, and sometimes that may be laughter, and I love the sound of laughter, but there are other times where if it touches you in an emotional way and a tear wells up in your eye, then I think we're doing our jobs that way too.
Well, you're doing your job. Leanne and I were here because you came to Owatonna. He is in Owatonna now, so this is an Owatonna Community Connection thing. And you were speaking and you were showing some examples of some of these great stories. And so my nose is stuffed right now because we were crying through so many of them. Is that how you won so many Emmys? Was it because of the emotional content?
I wasn't judging the contest, so I don't know. I think of awards as kind of it's just this side thing that comes along, this bonus, because we're producing the stories for our audience and for our viewers, and and trying to do a lot of the stories we do in this segment are near and dear to the people who we're featuring. I mean, they're life stories. They're momentous events taking place in their lives. So I always feel like I'm trying to tell a story that honors them as well and honors their story. And then, and occasionally an award will come along, and that's nice afterwards. And I always share that too with the people in the stories, because it's a recognition of not just the way we put the story together, but it's also it should feel like an honor to the person whose story we've told as well.
Sure, and some of those stories we need to give a little snapshot of some of them for folks. But first, I would really like to know: have you always been a newscaster? Has this been what you've done for your whole career?
I was really fortunate. My high school English teacher in River Falls. I grew up in River Falls, Wisconsin.
We won't hold it against you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Came to me at class one day and said, the owner of the local radio station in River Falls called WEVR, is looking for a high school student just to come in on the weekends and sit in the booth and play commercials during Green Bay Packer games and Milwaukee Brewer games on Sunday afternoons. And I grew up on a dairy farm, and that was kind of the one day when we didn't work. Was Sunday, milk cows in the morning, milk cows at night, but Sunday afternoons was kind of some downtime. So I said, sure, I could do that. So that was how I got my toe in the door in broadcasting. Worked at that radio station through high school, and then went to college at UW River Falls. Continued working at that radio station. Did some work at the campus radio station as well. Was fortunate to get an internship at KSTP TV, Channel 5.
So you were studying journalism then when you went to school?
Yeah, but it was all, I don't know if I hadn't been, I told my kids this too, just if a door cracks open, go through it. You never know where it's going to lead, because I don't know what I'd be doing, but I doubt I'd be doing what I'm doing if it hadn't been for that high school job that opened that first little door.
And you were invited in to do that first? What precipitated that?
Just that radio station job?
Yeah.
I mean, he was just looking for a high school student because it was, I assume because it was a little bit cheaper than hiring an adult. And really there was no, I sat there and I waited till they said, we'll pause 10 seconds for station identification, and I pushed a button, and then I'd wait again until it was time for a commercial, and I'd push a button, and I did that for 3 or 4 hours, and then I went home. So it was my first job in broadcasting.
That is really extraordinary because it's clear that you've got a gift of telling stories. Where did that come from? How did you learn that craft? Because it's obviously it's won you many awards. It's just great.
Some of it's probably part of me. I mean, I grew up in a large family, very close-knit family. I grew up hearing stories. My dad's a great storyteller. My uncles, I grew up listening to great stories, just family stories. So I think that's just part of me. And then the other part, the learning how to write it and produce it, I think that's just things that I picked up in a 30-year career. It was just this desire to get better. And what is it that makes people laugh? What is it that makes people cry or feel something? And then just trying to hone my writing and my producing skills to try and harness some of those, some of the things that movie directors know, right? They know, movie directors know how to pull at our heartstrings. So what are they doing, and what can I do in my own work, in my little 3 or 4 minute story that I can?
It's a 3 or 4 minute story, and it's this little mini movie that just has all this emotion in it in that brief period. First of all, where do you get these stories?
Well, I'm blessed in that a lot of them are sent to me. So probably 95% of the stories that I produce come to me in emails or Facebook messages. And that part of that is just hanging around a long time. I've been at KARE for 19 years, and people are kind enough to think of me when they see a good story. So that's probably the majority of them come that way. Occasionally I'll see something that will just. But I remember I was working in Milwaukee, where I worked before coming to KARE, and there's a little church by the freeway that I drove by a couple of times a week. It was on the way to Madison, and we made a lot of trips to Madison because that's the state capital of Wisconsin. And I was, one day said, "God, it must be noisy in that church. It's so close to the road. It seemed like only 20 or 30 feet from the freeway." And I called up the pastor at the church one day driving by. I could see the sign, and I said, "Is it noisy in your church?" And he just proceeded to tell me all these great stories relating to the noise in the church. That they can't have the windows open in the summertime, and that he said, "Well, it wasn't as bad as my last congregation." And I said, "Oh, why is that?" He said, "Well, I used to serve at the end of the runway at Mitchell International Airport. That was louder." And I mean, and then he told about you know how we got our guardrail? A truck just about hit the parsonage, left the road and just about hit the parsonage, and my wife called the governor, and a couple of weeks later we got a guardrail in front of the church. So I think, that was 20 years ago I did that story, but it's a good reminder that there are great stories everywhere. It's opening our eyes and just asking the right questions sometimes.
Pulling the thread.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, just pulling the thread and saying, if I keep pulling, what more can I learn about this situation? And if I can learn enough, and if it's interesting to me, then then I presume it'll be interesting to our viewers too. So those are the types of stories that I like to pursue.
Well, you do the storytelling, and you also are a daily newscaster. Is that right? What is the difference between the two?
Well, on Mondays and Fridays I do daily news. So I come to work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. I get an assignment, and then I go out on the road, and that story's on the air at 10 o'clock that night. So it's a lot of different muscles because everything's got to be turned quickly.
It's immediate.
We have to work really quickly. And Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I work on my segment, Land of 10,000 Stories. So now I have 3 days to do that same thing I had to do in one day on Monday. So we usually shoot on Tuesdays. I write, do the log all the video. Typically we'll shoot 4 hours of video for a 3 or 4 minute story. So I have to sit down and go through all that video, do transcribing, and then I take those notes, and then I write the story. And then usually on Thursday, now we're in the third day, on Thursday the editor, then the photographer, is going to edit that story then, and he'll put it together based on the script that I write. And then in that time, I'm setting up the next week. So while he's editing, I'm trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do next week? I need to go through all those emails that I've been getting and figure out something else. Then.
How long between you getting one of those emails do you end up doing that 3-day process? I mean, is it pretty rapid? Or?
Yeah, sometimes it's the next week. Sometimes sometimes I don't have a story next week. What can I find in my inbox that might make a good story? And sometimes it's something that's months away. Where I'll look at this and go, this would be a nice story around Christmas, and I'll just put it aside, and maybe we'll do this around the holidays. I just talked to a woman today on the phone with a really nice story that I think would be wonderful on Thanksgiving week.
So we should watch for Thanksgiving week to see what this story will be.
Every newscast.
Well, and he just told us a story that's coming up on Tuesday that you'll want to see about a one-legged kicking coach.
Yeah.
And that's all I can say about it. But it's very exciting.
That's called a tease.
It
what
is.
You just did. So,
it is.
So this will air before Tuesday?
This will be airing on Monday.
Okay. So
yes.
So when this airs, so tomorrow night, KARE 11 News at 10,
yes.
you can solve the riddle that you've just set up.
There you go. Well, this went by way too fast, and we didn't get nearly enough of your story, but I thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. It was really a pleasure
Really
talking
appreciate
with you.
it. Thank you for staying with us. Do keep watching. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Amy Swain Hearing Centers is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show. I'm Dr. Amy Swain, and I want everyone to hear better.
Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas produced by gas-fired appliances in your home. The state of Minnesota requires that you have a carbon monoxide alarm within 10 feet of sleeping areas in your home. We suggest you have a digital readout carbon monoxide alarm. That way we were able to check and see what the concentration amount was when the alarm went off. This has been a public safety tip from the Owatonna Fire Department.
Hi, I'm Betsy Linger from the Owatonna Foundation. Your generosity has made Owatonna a better place to live by benefiting our community, the arts, recreation, and education. Please consider a donation today. The Owatonna Foundation is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show.
Owatonna Public Utilities, real people, real reliable, real progress. Making life a little easier day after day, taking pride in our community, listening to what you say, a voice you can talk to. We're growing with you in mind in everything we do. Owatonna Public Utilities.
Hi, I'm Tim Anderson, the owner of Anytime Fitness, where we make getting healthy affordable and convenient. Anytime Fitness is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show.
Welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, Your Community Connection. I am here at the Owatonna Arts Center, and we have just finished a book reading of The Trial of Mankind, and I am here with author Vincent Dixon and illustrator Scott Nyland, and of course you all know Scott Nyland because he is an Owatonna native. Gentlemen, welcome to the Owatonna Today Show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we had Scott on the show last Monday, and he was talking about the book and the illustrations and then also his career. So to start with, for the first part of this interview, Vincent, we want to concentrate on you. So first of all, tell us where you are from.
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, that's a bit of a ways away. And give us your background. Tell us how you came to be who you are today.
Well, I'm an only boy with 3 sisters, all older than me.
Aren't you lucky?
No, I wasn't. No, it wasn't too bad, but everybody thinks I was spoiled, and I wasn't.
Okay.
I became a singer in the choir and a few singing groups. And as I became a teenager, I became a plumber. And I did plumbing for 30 years.
Oh my, okay.
And singing, you know, on the side and so forth.
Plumber by day, singer by night.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And when I retired, I needed something to do, so I started writing. I'd already been writing songs and poems and things of that nature. And the woman who eventually became my wife, at the time I was writing her poems. And when I wrote the poem I didn't call it The Trial of Mankind. I just said, hey, Connie, here's a great poem. Check this out.
Oh, okay. We're going to do a close-up of the book here. How did you come up with the idea then of the name of this, The Trial of Mankind? It started out with a poem for your wife, and the poem was actually just the first chapter of the book.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how did the ideas develop from there?
Well, we decided that, we wanted to point out that even though God did give man dominion over the earth, he was taking abuse of that privilege, and the best way to do that was to try to do it in a positive way, because you already got people fighting for animal rights and so forth, but everything is like a war or a battle. So we figured that we would do something that people would enjoy, and hopefully while they're enjoying it, they would receive the message in a subliminal sort of way.
And what struck me, because you did do a reading of your book today here at the Owatonna Arts Center, what struck me is you gave voice to the animals, which we don't hear, and made them seem like they had a soul and a personality. And so how did you infuse all of that into the book?
Actually, it's hard to say how the animal voices really came along, but as I was writing the story, it just felt natural. It felt like the right thing to do. And as I began developing the characters, it allowed me to see the creature, and it allowed me to write better about the animal. And it just became natural,
Okay.
I can't say that when I started writing the book, I didn't say when I write this, I'm going to do all these different animal voices. It just seemed to fall into place on its own.
Okay, so this was really kind of a work in progress type thing. And how long ago did you start on the first poem?
2001.
Okay, so that's been quite a long time that it's taken for all of this to develop. Okay.
Yeah, well, there's an odd thing about it, though, because I had written the first 6 chapters, was it? Yeah. I wrote the first 6 chapters within the first 6 years. And we were just kind of dealing with that. But when I got with the publishing company, and they said that they thought it was great, but it was a short story. And they didn't want to produce a short story. They wanted to produce a novel,
Okay.
And this was last year?
More than that.
Oh, 2 years, because we spent a year doing the artwork alone. So 2 years ago in March, the publishing company said, can you make it longer? And I said, how much longer? They said about 7,000 more words.
Which equal how many more chapters?
It ended up being 3 more chapters.
3 more chapters, okay.
And I'm really appreciative that they did, because I didn't know that the story had that much more to offer. And it only took me 30 days to write the last 3 chapters.
And of course, what we have to look at too is that you work full-time as a plumber, you were a singer, and you told me that you have written several plays and a musical, or is it the other way around? Anyway, both. So, I mean, you're quite the creative gentleman.
Thank you.
So, how did you feel when you hooked up with Scott? Scott told us kind of how that came about on Monday's Owatonna Today Show. You had a phone conversation. What was your first impression of Scott?
Well, when I saw the artwork, I was impressed. But I had seen good artwork before, and so, I mean, to me, that was just step one. First, you got to have good artwork, but there had to be chemistry. I did not want to work on a project of this nature, and there was no chemistry. So after we talked on the phone, I said to him, I would like for us to get together, because we need to know each other. We need to bond as men in order for the story to work. Because in my mind, if we didn't get along, or if there was something about his character that struck me as wrong, it wasn't going to happen. But when we got together, we actually did about 3 years of male bonding in about 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
We really did. We laughed, we talked about each other, we cried, we did it all. And then we said, okay, let's get down to business. And what really made me happy was he said, well, Vincent, I got to be honest with you, I'm a perfectionist. And if I see just the slightest thing wrong, I have to say something. Are you okay with that? And I was jumping with joy because I'm a perfectionist. So it was so good because neither one of us took criticism with any weight behind it. You know what I'm saying? If I said something, he didn't have to be gentle about it. He said, no, I don't like that. We need to do something else. There was no offense. It's okay.
No offense.
Let's do something.
But there was some great honesty.
Oh, it was honesty. It was working together. And as far as I was concerned, God meant for this
to happen.
Yes.
And I think he probably meant for the relationship to happen more so than the book.
Oh,
you think so?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Okay. Pass the microphone over to Scott then. So Scott, how long of a process was this illustrating Vincent's book? Because you said you didn't read the whole book.
Well, I didn't read the book at all after the fact I read it, but we did this all by communicating over the phone or in person. So when we met on the phone, that initial conversation, he just read the first 2 chapters. And that's when I knew I wanted the job. Then I should say, that's when I knew I wasn't going to let anybody else get this job.
Okay.
And then that's when I did a few sketches as examples, and then he liked them with comments about aesthetics, about the family's image, or aesthetics about, just minor tweaks. And then once
you had it in your head what these characters were.
Oh yeah.
You know what? It wasn't as much as I had. It wasn't as much as I had it in my head, because I believe in staying in your lane. I'm a writer. I wanted an illustrator who could see it, and I can let them hear it, but I wanted an illustrator that could let them see it. So I really didn't have any particular vision, but once Scott drew them, I could look at the character and I could do the voice, and when I looked at that character, the voice fit. It was great.
It was great, okay.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that there were some tweaks back and forth then in this process of illustrating. How many illustrations are in the book, Scott?
They gave us a goal of doing 20 panels, and so we kind of took 20 panels and spread it out over 9 chapters, whether it be a full-page illustration, a 2-page illustration, or small little vignettes throughout the book. So when we had that objective, that's when we started out doing 40 thumbnails across a bunch of pages, and then edited it down to 20-ish panels that we then made little vignettes out of for each of the pages, and that's what you see today.
And then working with the publisher with the illustrations, what is that like? I mean, how long of a process was that? Because I would imagine that was a lot of back and forth as well. Wasn't? Really?
I thought the same thing. What happened was when we agreed that this project was mine, I was going to work with Vincent on getting the illustrations done and approved, and then once the illustrations were approved by Vincent, that's when I would then send them to the illustrators. But they wanted everything at the end when everything was done. So after the introduction, I then spent a year finishing them, editing them, photoshopping them, and then once everything was done and everything was approved by Vincent, then that's when I sent them into the publisher. And then once that was done, we started working on the cover.
Okay, all right, wow. It's quite a process, and for Vincent, it's been a 12-year process?
That's right.
And for Scott, it's been about a 1-year process.
About a year and a half.
Yeah. And you're collaborating on another project, which is marvelous. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. We want to do a Trial of Mankind Part 2, Trial by the Sea. But here recently, the thought has came into my mind to do a Trial of Mankind, Trial of the Crocodile. And I started writing that in my head, which is how I start. I write in my head first, and so, hey, anything that I do that Scott wants to put his name on, it's an automatic, he and I will collaborate on that, and once we decide which way we want to go, it'll happen.
It'll happen. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Congratulations on your first published children's book, which is actually really more of an adolescent children's book, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it is available on The Little Professor here in Owatonna. And then where else, Vincent, is the book available?
Available at bookstores anywhere. They can order it for you right then and there. And you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goble, Google, and iTunes Play.
Holy moly, Rocky. All right, that is great. So everyone, it's really a wonderful book. There's a few twists and turns along the way, which I got a little worried towards the end, but I love the way it ended. You have to get this book, especially if you care about our planet. All right. Thank you so much. And
Thank
audience, please stay with us. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
At Triumph Graphics, we think beyond ink. That's why you should make us your source for creative concept, design, print, mail, and web. Check us out today at triumphgraphics.com.
Hi, my name is Dave Efforts with TPS Insurance. We're here to handle all your insurance needs. We are a very proud supporter of the Owatonna Today Show.
We can get another one. Put your hand out. There, put your hand out. Put your hand out again. Put your hand out. Right here. Oh, I've got a couple. I got a couple. Okay, want to head in?